How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the College Football Podcast on Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. Merry Christmas to everybody. And this episode of the podcast will be a review of all the first-round games of the College Football Playoff, along with my picks for the second round of the College Football Playoff. Let's get started. We start with Indiana and Notre Dame. And Notre Dame looked strong to start off the game. And they got off to a big lead. And Indiana, they did belong in the playoff. I know there's people out there saying that they didn't. To me, they did belong. They struggled, as you can see and they ended up making it close at the end of the game, and it ended up being a 10-point game at the end of the game. All props to Indiana for making the playoff and going 11-2. Congratulations to Notre Dame on winning. Now they get Georgia. And Curtis Rourke did have 2 touchdowns for 200 yards. The big play in this game was Jeremiah Love with a 98-yard touchdown run in the first half. And when that happened, I watched almost every playoff game. And after the Jeremiah Love touchdown rush for 98 yards, I'm like, this game's over. There's no way Indiana was going to come back. And they ended up making it closer than what people thought it was going to be. But there's a couple spots in the game where I thought Indiana should have gone for it. They should have, in the third quarter, they had it fourth, and I think it was like 4. With 12 minutes left in the third quarter. It was either the third or fourth quarter. There was 12 minutes left, and they had it fourth and short. And instead of punting it, instead of going for it, they punted it back to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame just ran the ball and ran the clock down, which I don't necessarily – I agree with what Notre Dame did after they got the ball back. But if I was in Kirk Cignetti's situation there, I would have went for it. And if I didn't get it, okay, I'll live with that. I missed on fourth and short and didn't get the first down. But like I said, I would have gone for it. We get to Clemson. The next one is Texas and Clemson. And Clemson, I'm going to say this. They did play good. They just couldn't keep up with Texas. Cade Klubnik had 3 touchdowns and 300 yards passing. And I do think Clemson's going to be okay. I think they will be back in the playoff next season. But to Texas, if they can run the ball the way they did against Clemson, there's no question they can be in a national championship game. But they would have to go through Georgia again. And I think they would have a better shot at Georgia this time because Georgia's not going to have Carson Beck, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. But and the other thing is TJ Moore for Clemson, heck of a game. 9 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. He had a really good game, and I think that sorry, I did not mean to click on that. And I think and Jaden Blue for Texas had a big game too. 14 carries, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is the last bit I'm going to say on this game. I think if Texas, like I said a minute ago, if they can run the ball and be able to throw, there's no reason that they can't make the national championship game. Now we get down to Penn State and SMU. Now this wasn't much of a game. I do give SMU credit. They had a really good season, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're SMU. And Kevin Jennings did struggle. I'll say that. He did struggle. He had a couple pick sixes, and they turned the ball over a lot. You can't do that against Penn State and expect to beat Penn State. Now we get over to the Penn State side. And I need to have a second here to apologize to all the Penn State fans. I picked against you when I picked this game. I said SMU was going to win. I admit I was wrong. You proved to me that you can win a big game. And now let's see. Can you get past Boise State? That's going to be a bigger test. Not saying SMU wasn't a test. It was. But you won. And now, so you go on and you play Boise State. But Drew Aller had an okay game, from my estimation. You had Kevin Jennings did okay. He had 116 yards passing and a touchdown. And you had Daniels had 4 catches and a touchdown. But like I said, Penn State they outplayed SMU, and they won this game more than SMU did. And I could see Penn State maybe making a small playoff run here. Now we get to the game that everybody was talking about. And right off rip, I'm going to say there was some calls in this Ohio State-Tennessee game that were in favor of either team. And I feel like the officiating was not very fair to either team. To get that out of the way, now on to the game. Will Howard had 2 touchdowns and threw for 300 yards. Travion Henderson had 2 touchdowns and almost had 100 yards rushing. Quinshon Judkins also had a touchdown. You had Jeremiah Smith with 6 catches for for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ohio State did. We're going to start with Tennessee. In Tennessee, I do give you credit. You did keep it close for a few minutes to start in the first half for a little bit before Ohio State picked up the pace and just ran you out of the stadium. But Tennessee, nothing to be ashamed of. You made the playoff, and you had a good season. You just ran into an Ohio State team, and I'll say it here in a second. Ohio State was the better team, and we could all see that within the game. But Tennessee, I think you kind of need to be worried about, can we get back to the playoff next year? And if we do, can we have a better showing in the playoff next year than we did this season? Now to Ohio State. Ohio State, where was this kind of effort against Michigan? I would really like to know. Where was this effort against Michigan? Best game that Will Howard's played all year, other than the Oregon game early in the season. Travion Hendricks played really good. Jeremiah Smith played really good. The defense played out of their mind. And I think if Ohio State plays like this the rest of the playoff, they could go far. Now I'm going to give you my predictions for the second round of the college football playoff, starting with the New Year's Eve game between Boise State and Penn State. These two teams did not face each other in the regular season. And Penn State's favored by 11. Totals 52.5. I think in order for Penn State to win and pull the upset here, because they're the higher seed, they need to contain Ashton Jeanty, who should have won the Heisman. That's that. I just wanted to get that out of the way. He should have won the Heisman. It should not have been Travis Hunter, because snaps aren't a stat. But that's neither here nor there. And the other thing Penn State has to do is contain the QB run game as well. From watching tape of Boise State, they like to run their quarterback a lot. That's why they led the country in rushing yards. It wasn't only Ashton Jeanty, it was also their quarterback. With that being said, I think I really want to take Boise State here, but something tells me Penn State's going to do it again. They are going to beat Boise State and move on to the Final Four. They're going to move on to the next round. Then we got Texas and Arizona State. Sorry about that. Texas and Arizona State. These two teams did not play each other either in the regular season, as one of them is in the Big 12, the other one's in the SEC. And Texas is favored by 13.5. 51.5 is the over-under, which is the total. And the way Arizona State wins this game is if they contain Texas's run game and make Texas one-dimensional, and they make Texas throw the ball a lot. And then when they have the ball on offense, they run it with Cam Scottaboo, and they slow down the tempo and the pace of the game and run the football and churn out these 6, 7, 8 minute long drives and drive down the field and score. And they have to score on every possession. Field goals aren't going to get the job done against Texas. For Texas to win, Quinn Ewers has to play turnover-free football, no stupid penalties, no false starts, no offsides, no roughing the passer. And Texas, same thing with Texas on offense. They have to run the ball consistently and not have short drives. With that being said, I think Texas does end up winning this game, and they move on to the next round. Then you've got the personal best game of the second round of the playoff, Oregon and Ohio State. Ohio State is a 2.5 point favorite, which we've seen this movie before. Ohio State has played Oregon in the regular season, and it was at Oregon. Ohio State 2.5 point favorite, 54.5 is the over under. For Ohio State to win, I'm going to keep it simple here. They have to play the same way they played against Tennessee. That is the only way they beat Oregon. If they play the same way they did against versus Oregon that they did against Tennessee, they will beat Oregon. And for Oregon, if they play the same way they played the first time against Ohio State, they might have a chance to do the unthinkable and beat Ohio State twice in the same season, which would mess up everybody. Everybody probably has Ohio State and Georgia in the national championship game. And yes, I did just spoil who I have in my national championship game. But I am obviously I'm going to be taking Ohio State, non-biased here, but I'm going to be taking the Buckeyes. Then you've got Georgia and Notre Dame. Now, Carson Beck, this is what I was going to get to earlier, but I waited till we got to Notre Dame, Georgia. Carson Beck is out of the college football playoff. He will not be playing for Georgia. He's out injured with a UCL injury, which is a bone in your elbow. He will not be playing. It'll be Gunnar Stockton starting at quarterback for Georgia, which we got to see. I'm going to start on the Georgia side first. We got to see a little bit of Gunnar Stockton in the SEC title game. What little bit we saw of him, he was actually pretty good. And I don't think Georgia's going to struggle on offense as much as I do think they might have a little trouble on defense against Notre Dame's offense. For Georgia to win, they got to play, and I'm sorry, Georgia fans, I don't know if you want to hear this. You got to play smart, no turnovers. Gunnar Stockton probably has to be a game manager. Manage the game. Get your 2 or 3 big shot plays in there. What? And Georgia fans, I want to know, why is Gunnar Stockton starting and not Jaden Rashada? Because I thought Jaden Rashada transferred to Georgia. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, and then on defense for Georgia, no dumb penalties, limit the explosive plays. Those are the 2 big keys there for Georgia's defense. Limit explosive plays and no dumb penalties post whistle or after the ball is dead. For Notre Dame on offense and to pull the upset here, because you see Georgia is a 2-point favorite, 44.5 is the over-under. And for Notre Dame to pull the upset, they got to play the same way they played against SMU. Minus the turn. They did have a few turnovers against. Oh, wait, no. They played Indiana. Notre Dame did have a few turnovers against Indiana. I think Riley Leonard threw a pick, and then there was a fumble recovery at one time or another during the game. But I think if Notre Dame can limit the turnovers and get explosive plays, they can win this game against Georgia. But my pick, with that being said, give me Georgia. Give me the Bulldogs. And we did have another head coach hiring. It was at the FCS level. It was Brandon Marion. He is the new head coach at Sacramento State. And I like this hiring for Sacramento State for 2 reasons. One, you've already seen there's a few guys from UNLV that are following Brandon Marion over to Sacramento State. And Sacramento State is notorious for winning. And yes, I do watch FCS football. I watch FBS and FCS football on this channel. And I do have an announcement to make. September 12th, 2026. Me and my co-host Bradley will be in Ann Arbor, Michigan for the Oklahoma-Michigan football game. Again, that is September 12th, 2026. 2026. We will be in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The college football podcast with Bradley and Alec. Because, of course, I do the one with just me. But the one with Bradley and Alec will be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, September 12th, 2026 for Oklahoma and Michigan. And yes, that is because I lost. I made a deal with all my subscribers on YouTube. In the preseason, if I missed win totals, I would have to take a trip to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2026 for a Michigan football game. And I'm delivering on that promise, even though it's going to pain me to do it because I'm an Ohio State fan. But that is going to wrap up today's episode of the College Football Podcast. I will see everybody back here after the new year. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. See you in 2025 for more riveting episodes of the College Football Podcast on YouTube and Twitch. Yes, I'm making that known right now that the College Football Podcast of 2025 will be on YouTube and Twitch permanently. All episodes will be on both platforms. But have a lovely Christmas and New Year's. See you in 2025.